What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Yamatodamashii podcast. I'm joined by Enson, and Enson, obviously, we're always usually talking MMA. We're talking your MMA career, but one thing that I noted this weekend was that Andre Arlovski and Junior Dos Santos are set to actually do pro wrestling debuts, and they're coming from a strict MMA background. They're not pro wrestlers previously, and I thought, what better episode to do than actually hear from the man himself who did the exact same thing, who jumped straight into the pro wrestling ring. So let's get into it. Let's talk about this. So you did New Japan, right? New Japan Pro Wrestling, and
Yeah.
I'm curious, how did that come about?
Well, I of course I in my career there was a lot of mixed, Pride had a lot of mixed shit that they did with that. I really was against it. It wasn't like I had anything against pro wrestlers or pro wrestling at all. It was just I didn't like the idea that they mixed it in the same ring. I'm not gonna go to a pro wrestling event and start punching the guys like fighting. So I don't think they should come to our ring and agree on who's gonna win and lose and throw fights. So I had a little a bad vibe about that, but I didn't dislike pro wrestling. And one of my good friends, Josh Barnett, he's actually he does both.
Yep.
And he does both really well. Josh is a very good pro wrestler.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
And he was trying to convince me to do pro wrestling. And I was straight up telling Josh, I'm not a pro wrestler. I can't pro wrestle. I can't act. I don't know how to, backdrop people. I don't know how to take backdrops. I don't know how to pull my kicks. Because, as you know, the objective in MMA is to make your attacks be very subtle but hurt. In pro wrestling, it's the total opposite. You need your attacks to be huge and exaggerated, but they shouldn't hurt. So you're looking at freaking like vegetables and fruits here. Like it's super hard. So for me, I never considered myself an actor, and I declined. I told Josh, no, you're good. I'm not. I'm not going to do pro wrestling. And he kept on it. And Josh is a very, very persistent person when he wants something. And so he kept on it. And so I said, okay, let me think. He goes, okay, I have a good idea. And said, how about you corner me and see what it's like? So I'm like, okay, that's a good idea. So Josh had a big event on the Tokyo Dome, and I actually went and cornered him. And then we're walking down the ring, and I already know who's going to win and who's going to lose.
Yeah.
So I'm going in the corner. I get in the corner, and I literally get in the corner. I'm like this. He's winning, and I'm like this. He's getting beaten up. I'm like this. I was horrible.
Right.
I didn't say a word. I didn't yell for him. I didn't cheer for him. I just watched and saw the outcome that I already knew was going to happen. And she wanted me to corner him to convince me that, see, you could do it. And what that incident actually did was convince me that there's no freaking way I can do it.
Backfired.
So we went in the back, and I told Josh, man, I can't do this, man. And he kept on it, man. He said, you can. And I'm not sure if Josh had anything to do with it, but I got contacted by Inoue, which is one of the top New Japan CEOs in the company. And he told me, hey, Enson, we want you to be a part of our team. And I'm like, I'm not a pro wrestler. I don't want to run and bounce off the ropes and, do all that kind of weird shit. And he goes, no, don't worry, Enson. Your fights will be gauged around your style. I'm like, what? He goes, you don't need to do backdrops. You fight. You fight. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And I'm thinking to myself, like, so how am I going to lose to these guys? I mean, these guys are big pro wrestlers.
Yeah.
And in the pro wrestling world, they're huge, and I'm nothing. In the fighting world, everyone knows I can fight, and I could probably kick their ass if we really fought. So the guy who I had a real good scheme, he said that if you ever lose, it's going to be disqualification. So the contract they gave me was $10,000 a month, regardless if I fought or not.
Not too shabby.
Yeah, pretty damn good. So I only was asked to come on the, they have something called the Gashku, where they 2 weeks they go to a different town every single day and do a match.
Mhm.
He didn't ask me to go on that. He said all I needed to do was go on the events that are in huge arenas like Tokyo Dome and the televised events.
Mhm.
So I think in the year I must have had about 6 or 7 pro wrestling fights that I had.
Mhm.
And the other months I had off, I still got paid. So I decided to. It wasn't because of the money. It's just because, it seemed like something I could do,
Yeah. Yeah,
and it was hard. It was really
yeah.
hard.
So
Like, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, so a couple of things that sort of sprang to my mind immediately when we sort of started this conversation was, well, just first off from the bat, do you think the fans interacted differently? Like when you were sort of in the arena, did they feel different? When they were outside the arena, do you feel like the pro wrestling fans were different to MMA fans?
Yeah, they're totally different, man. They're more fanatical,
Hmm.
and they're more. I had more fans. I had the more fans that was added to my people who knew me
Hmm.
in 1 year of pro wrestling. I think I've tripled my fans from my 15 years of fighting.
Wow.
The pro wrestling business, the fans, they got magazines. They were on TV in Japan. So
Hmm.
the amount of coverage and the publicity that the pro wrestlers get is 100 times more than fighters. So as far as name value, like my name value went up because
Hmm.
ever since then, whenever I was recognized on the street, which is very often after that, it was always about pro wrestling.
Really?
Very,
Wow.
very rarely was it about fighting.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the amount of people that get to know you in pro wrestling is like just huge, man. So
Yeah.
it's a big market, and the interesting thing that I found was I actually went to only one of their practices.
Right.
That's
Okay.
where all the big boys were training, and what
Mhm.
happened was I did their series of back falls and their warm ups and everything, and
Mhm.
all I remember is the end of that day, I ended up teaching them ground.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
so they're interested in the proper armbar, the proper
Mm.
escape, because when they do it, they're doing the actual thing. So
Mhm.
to be able to do it, so you can sell it to the crowd, you probably it's probably a good idea to do it properly and learn how to
Yeah.
do a proper armbar. So I remember teaching them the armbar, and I don't remember ever going back to that gym to train again. I was never asked to. I was never required to.
Mhm.
I just met them at the arenas, and they all had to go on the Shinichi bus. I
Mhm.
drove my own car.
Oh, really? You didn't get the bus?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't know if you know pro wrestling, but
Yeah.
Nagata,
Yeah, yeah. Yuji Nagata, yeah.
Chono, they
Shonen
were
it
they
one.
were super nice. Him, Chono,
Yeah.
Nakanishi, they really just went out of their way to give me tips. And I remember Chono telling me, Enson, in pro wrestling, 90% is your facial expressions.
Hmm.
So when you get hurt, don't look down, look up. They're like, I mean, it's so out of the
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the
instinctual
opposite,
movement.
right? Yeah.
When you're hurting, it's like, ah.
Yeah.
But they said, go, ah.
Yeah. Yeah, because as fighters, you guys sort of no sell it, right? You try and hide when you've been hit, but in pro wrestling,
Well,
I
if,
it's the
if
opposite.
even if it comes to a point where you can't hide it, you're not going to look up in the air and scream and
Yeah,
you're going,
yeah. So
you're
true.
gonna go down, yeah. So
Mhm.
they gave me good tips. I feel it was an amazing experience. You know what was
Hmm.
really surprising to me
Mhm.
is pro wrestling stamina. You need freaking stamina.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing. It's a lot harder because in fighting, you don't need to remember a skit. You don't need to, you know, play well with your opponent. You're just defending yourself. You're on the ground. You got a good position. You hold the mount.
Mm-hmm.
In pro wrestling, you hold when you get the guy on the mount. You're going to remember, okay, now I'm going to hit him with 2 strikes. He's going to stretch his arm. I'm going to armbar. He's going to get out of armbar. When he gets to the armbar, he's going to try to stack me. I'm going to pivot out of the stack. I'll turtle up. I'm going to stack. It's like a continuous flow of things that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So in fighting, you can hold side control. Slowly try and get the mount, but in pro wrestling, it's like you don't hold anything. The movement is excitement. So it's like it was a big surprise for me when I had my first match that went over like 2 minutes, and I was literally, in the fight, it looks like I'm acting like I'm tired, but I was really tired.
Easy to act then.
Yeah, if you go look at I did a big fight in Tokyo Dome with Murakami.
Yeah, I think that's on their subscription service, New Japan World. I think they've got 1 or 2 of your matches.
Yeah, that was the one they had in the Tokyo Dome, and it was like, I think it's January 6th. They always have a huge event in Tokyo Dome.
January 4th, I think it is. But yeah.
Oh, 4th. Yeah. Every year they have like a huge event. Oh, you know that.
Maybe. Might have watched a few, but I watch more of the modern stuff. I like when you were in New Japan, it was like impossible to watch back then. So it was nowadays things are so easy, right? Everything's got a subscription service you can watch, but back then, man, it was kind of, I think
in Japan, when I was in Japan, they had it on TV I think it was every night at 11 p.m. or every Friday or something. Yeah, so it was on regular TV. It wasn't like pay-per-view. It was regular TV.
Mm-hmm. So how did you feel about it? Just because I'm curious, because it sounds so similar in the sense that Arlovski and Junior Dos Santos are coming from pure MMA backgrounds, just like you. They're on quite a big stage as well. It's for All Elite Wrestling, which is AEW. So it's like WWE, the rival promotion, and it's really taken over, to be honest. And it's gonna be on a big pay-per-view on Saturday night, I think. And if you know Chris Jericho, they're going to be wrestling against Chris Jericho.
Wow, yeah, Chris Jericho was huge.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on them. So it sounds similar in the sense that you were on like national TV. Like, were you nervous going into it?
Yeah, I was nervous. It was really different because when I remember before the fight, I wasn't nervous. The night before I would go clubbing. Right. We'd go eat dinner, eat red meat. Just do whatever, sleep late. As long as you get up in time to make the where we gotta get in the gates like that. I mean, as far as that, it was like there was no nerves in it. But once you got to the arena, that's when we started. We had to meet up with our opponents, and we had to figure out what we're gonna do that day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was nerve-wracking because, it'd be like, okay, there's some pro wrestlers that want to do from the first second to the last second. They want everything skidded.
Plan it out, yeah.
Everything. And then there's some fighters that we'll plan 3 different combinations, 3 different skits, little skits. And ad-lib the rest. So we'll do the beginning, ad-lib, and there'll be a sign from the ref or sign from my opponent. He's going to do something that we're going to start this next skit.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to ad-lib, and then there's going to be another sign. We're going to do the ending.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was guys that just wanted to decide what the ending was. And the rest was all ad-lib.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was interesting. I mean, for me,
did you have a preference?
It was a new experience, man. It was a really new experience.
Did you have a preference to having more of like a structured match or more of the ad-lib style?
I like the structured. I mean, of course, it gave me a little bit more nerves to have to memorize it, but just the ad-lib stuff, man. I just I didn't know what to do. I mean, I didn't when I took the mount, I couldn't hold the mount because it's kind of like in pro wrestling. The understanding of pro wrestling is you do shit, you get shit done to you. You
Mhm.
do just a give and take.
Mhm.
So, boom, I get on the mount. I punch him a couple times, then I gotta lose the mount and get something got to be done to me, kind of thing. So I had a hard time ad-libbing that kind of stuff because I didn't know if I would it would look like I rode off the mount.
Yeah.
Like whenever we had the skit, we went over everything. So like if Murakami was going to get out of the mount and he said he's going to do this, I would tell him, oh wait a minute, that would look really fake.
Mhm.
How about you grab my arm like this before you do that, and then so I was able to you know control it a little bit where I could make sure it would look real.
Mhm.
So for me, really would I'd liked it to have, some kind of skit. I've I didn't have a match go over 3 minutes though.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I had 40-second matches. I had matches that didn't even start because we went crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I had matches where I did something for 5 seconds and I tagged off. The guy got into the ring. They got into a big brawl. We went into a big riot, and the fight got disqualified. It was a lot of my fights were like that.
What do you think about the whole character side of things? Like, because I think I remember seeing clips. You kind of managed to do the whole like dog kennel stuff.
The what?
Didn't you ever bring in like a dog kennel to the ring?
Yeah, I was in a group called the MAKAI Club,
Right.
and we were crazy. Our whole theme was crazy dogs.
Mhm.
So we're like this wild dogs that people couldn't control.
Yeah. 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 What do you
So
think
what
about that? The
we
whole.
had this. Okay, I was part of Crazy Dog. The MAKAI Club was our enemies,
Yeah. That's yeah. 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 I thought.
and the head guy was this big, like old timer Hoshino Tosai,
Mhm.
and he was one that was like a real hothead, and he would slap people, and he was like a big time dude. So our thing was we would grab him and throw him into the doghouse. So yeah, so that's what that was. That was so our entrance song was that who
Did,
let the
who
dogs
let the
out?
dogs out? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we'd be coming out with that song. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it must have been. Did you find like I don't know because your fighting career was so serious, right? And every fight you took, we talk about it on the podcast, just how much it meant to you on like a personal level, right? Was this suddenly
Mhm.
like a complete sort of break away from all of that? And I don't know, did you feel like it changed you a little bit as a person?
Well, no, it didn't really change me, but it gave me a whole different outlook on pro
Mm,
wrestling because
mm,
what I realized in pro wrestling was that fighting is real and pro wrestling is real. You know how the fighters we all say pro wrestling's fake?
mhm.
It is fake if you look at what we do in the ring and we're comparing it to that. But I had a interview with Onita, one of the big
Really?
pro wrestlers in Japan.
Yeah, the hardcore wrestler, right? The FMW
Yeah,
guy.
he's super hardcore, and
Yeah.
what he said kind of stuck with me and made me realize that whoa, I've been looking at this whole thing in the wrong way. He said, "Enson, you're a real fighter." He said, "I'm a real fighter too." And I was thinking to myself, "You're a fucking pro wrestler." And then he goes, "It's just what we do real and what you do real is different areas." And I was like, "Huh?"
Mm,
He said, "Okay, Enson, what you do real is what you do in the ring. You really punch some guy. You really kick the guy. If I were to fight you at that rules, you kick my ass." He
mhm.
said, "But what we do real, what you guys need to understand is our real is from the day we walk, from the moment we walk out of the arena to the moment we get into the ring. That ring entrance is our real thing. I mean, and then when you see his ring entrances like that, it's like and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
watch our ring entrances, we're walking in the ring, just look like we're deadbeats. We're walking to the ring.
Right.
When you look at it, he said, we give everything we got to the ring entrances.
Mm,
As far as that, I blow you away. And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, that makes so much sense. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
what you guys do real is real. And I mean, it's just in different aspects of the whole fight.
yeah. It's like a different craft, right? It's yeah, Onita was famous for like barbed wire and fire and yeah.
He got scars all over his back and his forehead.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool.
But you know
Man.
what's real crazy? That you know what was really interesting that I realized about pro wrestling is, um, there is also another real thing about it.
Mm,
People say they're fake, and sometimes this whole thing that I'm going to talk about now deceives the public because
mhm.
the shit they do. Okay, for fighting, we're you can look at it like we're not as hardcore as them because we're doing everything not to get backdropped. We're doing everything not to get hit hard.
Mhm.
Okay, these buggers, they know they're going to get kicked full on in the chest with a boot,
Yeah.
and they gotta wait for it. They know they're going to get backdropped into the back of their shoulders,
Mhm.
and they gotta let it happen. And let me tell you, man, I got kicked in the chest by the pressers. That shit hurts.
Yeah, I bet.
When they slap you on the chest with their hand,
Mhm.
yeah, it's not something that's gonna knock me out or break my bones, but that shit hurts.
Yeah.
The backdrops fucking hurt. So, you know, there's a different type of courage.
Mhm.
There's a different type of courage to know the skit that you're gonna have to take 3 backdrops. You're gonna have to get kicked in the chest 8 times, and then you're gonna get dropped from the top rope.
Mhm.
That's a different type of courage, man. I mean, when I'm going into the ring for fighting, I'm going to make sure I'm not going to get backdropped. I'm going to make sure I'm not going to get kicked in the head. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you're avoiding all this shit. The pro wrestlers know it's coming, and they're going to have to let it come.
Mhm.
And that all this the stuff they do ain't no bullshit, man. I mean, yeah, their ring is a lot softer, is a lot cushiony.
Mhm.
But those backdrops are backdrops. Whether you get dropped on a bed or you get dropped on concrete, it's gonna hurt. Just to a
Yeah.
different severity. But yeah, I realized that I gained a lot of respect for pro wrestling.
Mhm.
No, not just the pain that they go through in the ring. I mean, they also have to memorize a skit,
Mhm.
and then their whole thing doesn't end when they leave the ring. Like us fighters, we concentrate. We don't give a shit about nobody but ourselves until we get to the ring. Once we
Mhm.
get to the ring, our job is to fight. After we fight and the ring's done, we're done. We just walking back to the locker room. We don't give a shit. The pro wrestlers got to be on all the way till they go to the locker room and the door closes.
Mhm.
There's so much more professionalism and entertainment they have to do. Like for instance, for me, I was a horrible interviewer. I did not want to get interviewed in pro wrestling because I couldn't scream and be mad when I'm not mad.
Mhm.
So I would every time my fight would end, I would book straight to the locker room
Get
and
in, get
not
out.
grant any interviews. I just took off. You don't see much interviews of me in pro wrestling because I just took off.
Mhm.
And you
So
know how professional they are.
yeah.
Like Murakami was like my enemy. We hated each other.
Mhm.
So there was a time when after event, we went to a restaurant to eat. So we're sitting at the restaurant eating, and then I see one of the younger boys come in, and he comes walking to us, and he says that oh, Murakami them are in the same restaurant in the back. So apparently they got there before us, but we didn't know because they sat us in the front.
Yeah.
And they said it was a restaurant that was frequented by pro wrestlers, and it was like the theme was like a pro wrestling restaurant. Like
Oh, maybe it's the Ribera's Steakhouse or something.
I
That's
don't know where it was,
yeah,
but
yeah. I've
we
heard
were
about that.
there.
Never been.
Yeah, we were there, and then what happened was the guy said that they're going to be leaving soon, so they're going to come to the table. So get ready. So I'm like, oh wow, what the fuck, So we'll get ready for what? So I'm sitting there, and then Murakami starts walking out of the restaurant. He looks over and sees us. Then he starts in the middle, like this is not pro wrestling anymore. This isn't a restaurant.
Yeah.
He starts screaming like, you fucking ass, and he starts screaming at me. Starts walking towards us. So I'm like this. I'm like thinking to myself, fuck, we got to play the act.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what I started doing? I started throwing all the food at him. I started throwing the peanuts at him. And he came and he tried to wrestle to the table, and his guys
No
grabbed him,
way.
pulled him away. And as they're pulling him away, I'm throwing my drink at him, and I'm looking, having this great time. Yeah,
That's
in the
nuts.
restaurant now.
Yeah.
And because the restaurant is, they love pro wrestling, they're super excited about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get food out and leave, and then the workers come and say, "Oh, is everything okay?" They clean up the mess and bring us new drinks.
Yeah.
But it's crazy, man. I mean, pro wrestling, it's like it's all about that, man. You know, like me and Murakami were cool. We were talking before the match what we're gonna do, but it's like he'll be screaming at me, you know, and as soon as it's like I'm in the locker room, and he'll be like playing the act outside the door, like fuck, where the fuck is he? Fuck, goes into the door, slams the door. As soon as he slams the door, it's like a light switch went off. It's like, oh, this guy's somebody's like they're like super nice, like whoa,
Yeah.
we turn it off and on like that. It's amazing, yeah. So
That's crazy. I didn't realize it was still taken. I know. I always thought that was sort of like maybe like in the 80s, 90s, they kind of kept the facade up, but it's back then as well, 2000. Crazy. I was just about to ask you if you had any particular like fondest memories of like maybe whether it was like I don't know hanging out with the boys or whether it was doing the entrances or but maybe it's the meal you just mentioned. But any other particular sort of fond memories of things that sort of stand out about your time in pro wrestling?
yeah, I think my one of my fondest memories is the match that I had with Murakami when we did it at the Tokyo Dome, where he cut himself or his corner cut him, and we had this match. I think that was the longest match I've done, and we had this all out brawl, and it was kind of cool because that whole event was half and half. Yeah, so they had real fights and they had pro wrestling fights. And our match with me and Murakami was the last pro wrestling event fight. And from our match on, it went into real fights.
No way.
So the reason why the promoter wanted to make me and Murakami do that one right before the real fight starts is because our fights was as close as real fights as could be in pro wrestling. And Murakami, what made it a lot more memorable and interesting for me was Murakami is a tough motherfucker. He's a tough guy. And when I had a hard time because I was really shitty. You know, you got to make the punches look sore, but you can't make it can't be sore. But I try to pull my punches, but it's hard to pull my. I'd rather mistakenly hit him than pull my punches and miss, and he acts like he got hit. So I had a hard time with that. But Murakami was straight up super helpful with me. He was like a veteran in pro wrestling, and he kind of straight up said, "Just hit me, Enson. Hit me. Don't worry about it. Hit me." So it made it a lot easier, made me a lot more comfortable. There was one match I had with Murakami that I had him in a guillotine, and I was going to stand up on the ropes and guillotine him. And
okay, like the Rose fight.
Yeah, kind of like that, but my back was faced instead, and he had his head underneath. So I did that, and what he told me was that this is how freaking hardcore this guy is, Murakami. So he's going to let me get the guillotine in, and he said that he's going to grab my wrist and he's going to squeeze my wrist twice. And the moment I feel him squeeze my wrist twice, he said to put it in for real and knock him out.
Wow.
So when we did that, he squeezed my. You can actually. I think it's on YouTube. That fight, but I had him up here. Boom! He squeezed my wrist. I tightened it up, and then as soon as I felt him go limp, I just let him go, and he fell back to the mat and was kind of. He was doing a little snore. So, my whole thing was that I didn't give a shit. So I kind of walked over, stepped on his face, and then when he was still asleep, and left. Yeah. So, that was one of my most memorable. I worked with Murakami a lot, but I think the Tokyo Dome one was the one that really was real memorable for me because we kind of, I got so tired that at the end of the match I just really couldn't even stand up without doing the Bambi like kind of wobble around. I was super. If you can find that match, try watch it, man.
Yeah, yeah,
I
well,
was so tired, man. And at the end, it was kind of ad lib where I was throwing the referee around and stuff. It was kind of fun. But
yeah.
oh man, I was so tired.
Oh, that's crazy. So, just wanted two more questions before we sort of wrap this one up. The first one being obviously one of the biggest names in pro wrestling, but also one of the biggest names in MMA was Brock Lesnar. And I was just curious what you thought about Brock, just given what he did in his sort of like when you look back on his career now, like what was your impression of Brock?
That was a scary motherfucker, man.
Yeah. I bet you would have
I
loved to
mean,
face him though, right? Because that was
ah,
like, yeah.
yeah, he was so I felt that Brock was so like a naturally gifted as far as strength, movement. That would definitely be somebody that I would have wanted to fight
Hmm.
in the ring. Um, I think he had all the abilities to do it, but I think that the reason why he didn't do as well as everyone thought he would in fighting is, fighting isn't something that you can just jump into
Hmm.
and just have athletic ability. I think it's important to be groomed in fighting, to be groomed to realize, how it is, how dangerous it is. And you need to be groomed that you're going to get hit in the face a lot. You're going to get hit hard in the face,
Hmm.
especially you're being a heavyweight. And I noticed towards end of some of the fights that he had later on is I think especially when he fought Alistar,
Yeah.
when he just started turning away and he just didn't like getting hit. I mean, no one likes getting hit, but the way he reacted was not like something the way you would think Brock Lesnar would react. So
Mhm.
for me, I just thought that he wasn't emotionally really ready, or he wasn't really ready for what fighting really was. And you know, I don't think that in fighting, I don't think ability in alone can pull you through it.
Yeah. It's like a bit of a shelf life, right? Like he had so much success initially, and then I suppose as well he had the diverticulitis as well, which probably didn't help. But I know what you mean. When it came to like guys like Overeem and Kane, you could kind of see that there was that sort of hesitancy to not take a punch to the face, right? Whereas
Or
maybe
when he
some,
did get punched, it was kind of like, whoa,
yeah, there was that
what
sort
am
of.
I doing in here?
Mhm. But yeah, okay, cool. And I just wanted to sort of wrap this episode on what would be your sort of advice to Mr. Arlovski and Mr. Junior Dos Santos for this weekend.
Who one my advice to them would be to really talk with the veterans of the sport and get those little tips from them, which I think there probably are, which is really good.
Hmm.
Uh, the advice and the tips that they can give you from being in the sport for so long can be invaluable. So that would be one of my biggest advice is to talk with the guys, and if you have any questions on how do you show pain, what do I do if I do this, I mean, if there's any questions they should ask. And other than that, have fun
Yeah, yeah.
and don't worry about anything. If you kick the guy and you make a mistake and you don't pull it and you kick him too hard, yeah, they'll just get a reputation that fuck Enson doesn't know how to pull his kicks. So, but I think the most important thing is for them to enjoy it and get the tips from the veterans as much as they can. Josh helped me out a lot when I started doing pro wrestling, and a lot of these guys really took me in. Nakata, Chono, they really were super cool to me. So
Mhm. Awesome. Cool. Well, I want to thank you so much for the time. And that does it for this episode. Unless you got anything else you want to say, everyone like and subscribe and all that good
no,
stuff.
I'm good, man. That was cool.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. All right. Well, let's wrap this episode up and we will speak to everybody shortly.